Hi! Today for this video we are going to find a weighted mean. This is something that is often used in a classroom setting, and it's important to understand how to find a weighted mean. For the situation that I have here, we do have 4 different categories: tests, homework, the final exam, and the participation grade. I also have listed the average for each of those 4 categories. So we have a 92% for the tests, a 95% for the homework grades, an 85% for the final exam, and an 87% for participation. So in order to calculate the weighted mean, you would take the sum of the average times the weight of that category divided by the sum of the weights. So if you are missing a category, and I will show you, I'll erase the final exam and show you what would happen if maybe one of these values was missing and you didn't know what it was, because sometimes I think that students especially get confused by how the gradebook calculates the grade. So the first thing that we want to do is, for this, if I add these all up, the sum of the weights for this category is 1 or 100%. Most of the time when we are working with decimal or working with percentages, we do express them as decimals because it's easier to work with. So what we would do here is we would take our average for each category, the 92, and we would multiply it by the weight as a decimal. So I'm going to take 0.5. For the next one, I would do 95 times the weight for that category, which is 0.2. And for the next one, we would do 85 times 0.2 and 87 times 0.1. So if I simplify each of these, for the first one, this earns a total of 46 points of the final grade. The 95 times 0.2 earns a total of 19 points for the final grade. 85 times 0.2 earns 17 points, and then the 87 times 0.1 earns 8.7 points. So if we sum this category here, X times W, if we add this up, we end up with 90.7 for the sum of these. So if we found the weighted mean, we would end up with 90.7. In this case, because the sum of all the weights is 1, we would just divide it by 1, so it ends up being 90.7. And that would be the overall grade for this student. So what the calculator, like most of the time, teachers use the gradebook to do this, and when it calculates this, let's say that one of these categories were missing. So let's say that maybe we didn't have an average for the final exam yet, so we're going to erase this. Let's say that we're missing this right now. Okay, so we want to find the average grade without the final exam. Okay. So the average without the final. Okay. In this case, what we would do is we would still do the same procedure as far as finding the average times the weight of that category, and then we would sum them up. In this case, now that we are missing the 17, our value down here has changed. Okay, so we now no longer have those 17 points in there. So what we would do is we would take that out, and this gives us 73.7. And to find the average without the final exam, so let's say that this is before the final exam, the gradebook calculates a grade for you. You don't have a 73.7% because you're missing one of the categories. So if you were missing that final exam score, what we would have is we would take the sum of the X times W for the top part here, which is the 73.7. And we would divide it by the weights. Well, in this case, we're missing the 20%. So right now, we only have 80% of the grades entered into the gradebook. So to find the average with the missing final exam score, we would end up having an average of 92.7. 0.125%. So this would be the weighted average if we were missing the final exam. So sometimes the weights don't add up to be 100%, and that's why your grade is different than what you might expect it to be, because you're now dividing it by the percentages that are represented in the category. As always, thanks for watching.